All right, so I recently met this man named Kevin. Shoot, was it Dan or Joe? Actually, I'm not sure, because he would change his name depending on what sounds he could fluently make with his mouth that day. He was often afraid to say his own name. But that is the reality for 1% of the population, for the 1% of people who stutter. And I am one of them. My name is David, and that's my actual name. I started speech therapy at the age of 4. And ever since then, I've been in and out of speech therapy my whole life. But I just recently got to the point of being able to openly talk about my stutter. You see, stuttering is not something I can simply stand up here and explain to you. It has to be experienced. And it's experienced every day by people who stutter, every time they talk. It's experienced in schools, at work, with friends, out to eat, anywhere they are. I actually like to call stuttering a hidden handicap, because it can't always be seen and is often misunderstood. What can be seen is what they call the tip of the iceberg, the actual stutter, the prolongations, repetition, the blocks, like right there, in a stutterer's speech, as well as the secondary behaviors, the movements of the body to attempt to squeeze out a word, like the head down, eyes closed. What people can't see is what they call the bottom of the iceberg, the emotional feelings that come along with stuttering, the shame, the guilt, the embarrassment. Now, when I was younger, I can remember teachers attempting to help me with my speech and telling me things like, David, just take your time when you talk, or take a breath, or you're too excited and anxious. You got to calm down. And these are all inaccurate statements that don't help, but I didn't know too much about stuttering myself, so I would usually just say, oh, okay, I can try those things. It wasn't until years later when I started speech therapy here at the Gebby Speech Clinic at Syracuse University that I really gained an understanding of stuttering. Here at Gebby, I'd like to say my speech was attacked. I was videotaped, timed, recorded, and taught countless techniques to combat my stutter. One of my favorite things that I was actually taught in speech was a strategy that anytime I stuttered, I would have to go back and re-say that word again until I didn't stutter on it. And that was to help build my confidence. So anytime I came across those words again, I can say, okay, I can say those words, I got this. Because if you're a person who stutters, confidence is a big deal. Because when you're alone, you're the best speaker in the world. You don't stutter at all. So you have that ability. It's just honing in on that ability. And that's what I did. That's what I worked for. I wanted my stutter gone 100%. I hated my stutter. So by the end of high school, I was actually there. With the help of my techniques, I had found my voice. I still stuttered, but I was definitely in control of my stutter. It wasn't until years later, at the end of college, that I began to lose a lot of that control. A lot of bad habits came back. And I was just exhausted with trying to have perfect speech. And so since I had had success in speech therapy before I decided to go back. This time, once I got started in speech, it was evident that I had all the techniques down. I now needed to work on the bottom of the iceberg. And my speech therapist and I looked into ways to become more open and accepting of my stutter. One of the things that my speech therapist encouraged me to do was to look into the NSA, the National Stuttering Association, and the support group meetings that they have across the country. Luckily, they had one here in Syracuse. So when I got home from college and returned here to Syracuse, I started attending those meetings. And that was like my speech journey coming full circle. I was finally meeting other people who stuttered, other people who had shared similar life experience as me, people who were not going to let stuttering define who they were or who they became. And I myself began looking into ways to promote awareness and education of stuttering. Actually, just last year, I was named the co-leader of that stuttering support group. When I was 19, my mom died of cancer. When she was here, I didn't always speak up. I didn't always say everything I wanted to say, and I often held back and hid behind my stutter. I take this opportunity to encourage all people who stutter, never let that happen. To always speak up, to always say what they want to say. It doesn't matter if you're having a good speaking day or a bad speaking day. Because it doesn't matter how you say something, it only matters what you say. And I like to end with this quote by James Earl Jones, also a person who stutters, who said, "One of the hardest things in life is having words in your heart that you can't utter." Thank you.